Pope Francis authorizes to canonize Venezuelan physician Jose Gregorio Hernandez. The scandal over the Libra cryptocurrency scam continues in Argentina despite attempts by President Javier Milei to dismiss the allegations against him. And a massive power outage hit Chile Tuesday, stranding commuters, knocking out traffic lights, paralyzing countless businesses, and leaving most of the South American country without electricity. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR Studios in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. Pope Francis authorized to canonize Venezuelan Jose Gregorio Hernandez. On a communique, the Supreme Pontiff approved the favorable votes of the ordinary session of the Cardinal Fathers and bishops, members of the dicastery, for the causes of saints. By this official announcement, the Holy See formally stated that the popularly known as Doctor of the Poor will be declared a saint, which date hasn't been set yet. This is the first time the Catholic Church proclaimed a Venezuelan faithful saint. The decision was grounded on the vast legacy of Gregorio Hernandez, who has been devoted by not only Venezuelans but also Latin Americans and Caribbeans.
With great joy, I can announce that today our beloved Pope Francis approved the positive opinion of the cardinals and bishops of the dicastery for the causes of beatification and canonization. He has approved the virtues of our dear blessed Jose Gregorio, who will soon be a saint. Pope Francis will convene a cardinal session where the date of canonization will be announced. May God give much health and life to our dear Pope Francis. And may we soon celebrate the canonization here in Rome, and in Caracas a solemn Mass to give thanks to God for this great gift.
In this regard, the Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro expressed the gratitude of the nation for the canonization through his social network Telegram. The head of state said, "Venezuela thanks Pope Francis for his historic gesture of canonizing the Doctor of the Poor, our Saint Dr. Jose Gregorio Hernandez. It is a great step and a gift he has made to our homeland, an act of justice to a man who in life was the protector of the most humble and who has always worked the miracle of health and life for those who have needed it most. I thank the Pope for this gesture with Venezuela, especially at this time when we all pray for his health, well-being and recovery. Love is repaid with love. Pope Francis, thank you forever." In Argentina, the justice system stopped a decree of the government of Javier Milei, which intended to privatize the country's national bank. The ruling came into effect after considering that the state measure could privatize the financial institutions, which is currently a public entity. In this sense, the banking union recalled that the national bank was excluded in the law of basis of the list of companies that could be privatized. With 658 branches, the Banco de la Nación Argentina concentrates 18% of the private deposits and 50% of the public deposits, that is to say, almost a quarter of all deposits of the financial system. And the scandal over the Libra cryptocurrency scam continues in Argentina despite attempts by President Javier Milei to dismiss the allegations against him. The Argentine head of state headed a cabinet meeting in which he discussed the probable appointment by decree of judges Ariel Lijo and Manuel Garcia to the Supreme Court of Justice, as well as the consequences of the so-called Cryptogate scandal against his government. On the other hand, Argentine opposition deputies requested a special session to promote a parliamentary investigation on the cryptocurrency scam. The scandal not only affects the image of Milei's government, but also calls into question transparency and ethics of the public administration. The Mexican government points out that the U.S. government's statements referring to Mexican drug cartels as terrorists cannot be used as a pretext to violate its laws. President Claudia Sheinbaum ratified that the government collaborates and coordinates strategies with Washington in diverse areas such as security. Sheinbaum also stated her refusal to allow operations to be carried out in the territory by the U.S. armed forces. Moreover, she indicated that the cooperation between both countries range from sharing information, intelligence, and joint work. On Tuesday, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt announced that Trump's administration will take direct control of media access to the president's events. The decision comes after, on Monday, a court declined to issue a temporary restraining order against the Associated Press news agency, AP, as requested by Trump's office. The ruling was another installment of an ongoing legal battle over the naming of the Gulf of Mexico by AP reporters. The move will give the White House press team full control of the composition of the daily press pool, deciding which journalists get access to the presidential events and effectively setting aside decades of historical difference to the White House Correspondents Association. And now we have a short break coming up, but first remember, you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. A massive power outage hit Chile Tuesday, stranding commuters, knocking out traffic lights, paralyzing countless businesses, and leaving most of the South American country without electricity. According to the National Electoral Coordinator, a disruption occurred in a high-voltage transmission line that carries power from the Atacama Desert of northern Chile to the capital of Santiago in the country's Central Valley. On the other hand, Interior Minister Carolina Toja said hospitals, prisons, and government buildings were switching on backup generators to keep essential equipment operating. Toja urged the public to stay calm and said officials were racing to put the grid back in operation and restore electric service across the country of some 19 million people. Peruvian prosecutors summoned President Dina Boluarte for corruption and cover-up in the Quali, Guarma, and presidential treasury cases. The president of Peru, Dina Boluarte, will testify for the second day in a row on Tuesday after being questioned about the alleged use of the presidential car for the escape of the leader of the Peru Libre political party, Vladimir Cerrón. In the previous session, President Boluarte also answered nearly 50 questions in an interrogation that lasted more than 5 hours. The Public Prosecutor's Office expects the President to attend again, although it has not yet been confirmed whether she will testify while the Public Prosecutor's Office evaluates the evidence and the development of the case. Peru's Soup Kitchens project rejected a budget approved by the National Congress to contract a new food service. The legislative body's new food service would be valued at more than $700,000 to allow for a budget of half a cent per ration to serve more than 300,000 people. The food project denounced the decision, alleging that the amount is insufficient to feed the thousands of beneficiaries. The group also accused the government of failing to meet the agreed budget of $2.50 per food ration. Ecuador's National Assembly began proceeding to debate a proposed constitutional reform that would recognize the U.S. dollar as the national currency. The Legislative Board of Directors unanimously approved a resolution presented by the National Assembly, which consists in the creation of an occasional commission to address dollarization. According to the legislature, the reform seeks to strengthen the dollar in the country after its recognition as the national currency. The parliamentary body pointed out that the initiative represents a step towards the consolidation of the national economy and protection of Ecuadorian families through monetary stability. Survivors of internal armed conflict marched in Guatemala's capital. Carrying photos of the murdered and disappeared, dozens of people walked through the historic center of Guatemala City to commemorate the National Day for the Dignity of the victims of the armed conflict. The demonstrators want to honor the memory of the more than 200,000 victims and disappeared left behind by the military dictatorship. The march, which began at 10 a.m., also denounced the failure of the current government to fulfill its promise of dignity for the survivors.
So what we want is that he tells us in front of the people how he is going to fulfill this commitment. That's what is important today. Two things: to pay tribute to the victims, to continue their struggle, but also to vindicate their demands.
Authorities in Havana, Cuba, informed Tuesday that search and rescue units found the body of the boy who had been missing during the floods that affected the Cuban capital on Monday. The victim was identified as 13-year-old Jonathan Oliva, who was sucked in by a street drainage system as he was crossing a flooded street in his neighborhood. The floods were the result of torrential rains that preceded the arrival of a cold front that hit the western part of Cuba. At least 9 people have been killed in Botswana after flooding caused by widespread rains. Authorities reported that more than 5,000 people were affected by the weather phenomenon. They also detailed that the rains caused a local dam to overflow, causing cars to be swept away and infrastructure to be partially submerged in water. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English, there you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to From the South. De facto Syrian President Abu Mohammed al-Julani, renamed Ahmed al-Shara, opened the National Dialogue Conference in Damascus. The initiative aimed at outlining a political future for the country after the overthrow of President Bashar al-Assad did not start off on the right foot. The Kurdish party denounced that, like other groups, they have been marginalized. The main session, intended to discuss the structure of a new constitution and the creation of new institutions, among other issues, is being seriously questioned. In the south, protests broke out against the submission of the de facto government to Zionist plans. The Russian Defense Ministry informed that during the last hours, anti-aircraft forces intercepted several Ukrainian shells in the territory bordering Ukraine. This way, it was reported that the Air Force shot down 5 U.S.-made guided bombs and intercepted 23 projectiles from this Ashak-made multiple rocket launcher system, together with 97 drones. The security agency reported that the Kyiv regime lost at least 905 soldiers, 300 of which belonged to the line of operations of the Central Group of Forces. In addition, Russian troops carried out attacks on military airfields, factories and drone workshops, as well as on Ukrainian military equipment accumulations in some 144 areas. Russian President Vladimir Putin is considering proposing to the United States the opportunity to work together in the field of rare earth elements. The Russian head of state said that Moscow holds more rare earth elements in comparison with Ukraine, so it is ready to work with its foreign partners, including the U.S., in different structures. President Putin refused to comment on the possible agreement between Washington and Kyiv concerning Ukrainian mineral resources. The Russian executive reiterated that the upcoming talks with Donald Trump's administration will be fully focused on the strengthening of bilateral relations. The UK government announced Tuesday that it would extend a policy allowing the use of foreign seasonal agricultural workers for another 5 years. According to a statement issued by the Department of Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. The decision will give farms a pipeline of workers and certainty to grow their businesses. The move is part of a wider draft of policies announced Tuesday to boost profits for farmers who are currently locked in a dispute with the government over plans to end an exception for farms from inheritance tax rules. Since leaving the European Union, the UK's agricultural sector has suffered from recurring labour shortages in livestock farming, market gardening and horticulture.
Well, I think Steve Reed's gone away with a very clear message that the farming community are not at all happy with the changes that the Treasury have proposed. It was very clear from the floor. It was a very frosty reception. And it's one that I fully recognise. The anger in our membership today is one that I've not seen ever in my time involved in farming. The sense of betrayal. And I think that the Secretary of State will go away with a very clear message to his colleagues around the Cabinet table that they should do the right thing and revisit the changes in the budget.
We've come today to demonstrate our disgust of what the Labour government has, of the new policies they've put in with inheritance tax and pickup taxes and fertiliser taxes, all directed at farmers. It's a tough industry. We struggle to make a living as it is anyway, and with these new policies that they've brought in, it's going to cripple us.
Women's football teams will face each other on Wednesday at the UEFA Nations League match that serves as their first encounter since the 2023 Women's World Cup final in Sydney. The game happens days after a Spanish High Court found former Football Federation President Luis Rubiales guilty of forcibly kissing player Jenny Hermoso following Spain's 1-0 victory over England at the Australian match. The episode generated a worldwide debate on consent and abuse of power and led to Rubiales' a 3-year suspension from the sport and the payment of a fine. In this context, while in the UK, for the upcoming match, Spanish midfielder Aitana Bonmati said on Tuesday that the sentence has set a positive precedent, while England striker Alessia Russo expressed her hopes for a change going forward.
For me, the sentence has set a precedent on this type of situation, sexual assault. It is positive. I think that is the feeling of the whole team. Irene said it the other day. I am personally surprised that the coercion, which was evident, was not also penalized. But from here on we have to respect the law. But above all, I would like to keep in mind that the process has served some purpose.
We stood in solidarity with them since the moment that it began, and it's really a shame that they've had to have gone through this. But yeah, we hope that it makes change going further forward. And I think you spoke on it before, it's a testament to the players to be so brave to speak out, but also to still be performing at the level that they are. And I've got teammates that have been through it and they've acted with so much class through it all.
In Rome, the United Nations Biodiversity Conference COP16 will resume from February 25th through 27th at the headquarters of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. Previously, in November, COP16 participants sealed a deal which made companies share profits with the owners of those lands they take natural resources from, namely from the indigenous communities. Notwithstanding, COP16 didn't make a quorum to negotiate needy environmental agreements back then. Therefore, the event's organizers decided to hold resumed sessions for COP16 to address agenda items left unresolved. Among the main concerning issues to be tackled is to hammer out a financing plan to reach $200 billion a year for nature by 2030, including $30 billion a year from wealthier countries to poorer ones. And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok as well. For TeleSUR English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.